attorney, and they are my guests. Well, this has been such a juicy case, right, from the beginning to the end, and now it appears that the jury is going to get this case. Tom, if I had to say to you right now to make a prediction, conviction, not guilty?
Not
Why?
guilty. A couple of reasons. I mean, the biggest problem the prosecution has in this case, typically in a murder case, what you have to try and convince the jury is that the defendant who is on trial actually committed the murder. Here, the prosecution has a more difficult burden because there is disagreement as to whether the victim was even murdered or whether this was an accidental death. Moreover, their own expert witnesses who conducted the autopsies cannot agree on what the cause of death was. So first you have to convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that the complainant was murdered. Then you have to convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant who was on trial actually committed that murder.
Yep.
I don't think they've done it in this case.
So we can see the live trial happening right here as we're talking about it on set. But what about this, Brian? This guy had not one mistress, but a couple, apparently. His own daughters don't believe him and testified against him. And by the way, didn't he want her to get that plastic surgery? How does that all factor into the case as evidence?
Well, that all sounds fine and dandy, but this isn't a Las Vegas magical act. I was waiting for the prosecution to call David Copperfield in as the rebuttal witness and then pull out a rabbit out of his hat and say guilty. The rabbit would have guilty on it. You need evidence, Gretchen, to prove somebody guilty of murder and send them away for life. And you can argue all you want that he was a bad husband, that he was a bad father, but at the end of the day, you need medical forensic evidence to support a murder. Their own toxicologist, Gretchen, testified in court. It killed him. He said she could have died with a combination of natural causes and medication.
And yet we've seen some murder trials where they don't even ever find the body and they convict a person on it. Are we to a point in 2013 where we've watched so much CSI and all these kind of legal shows that jurors now go into the courtroom and they have to see it hard and fast?
Absolutely, because like you said, Gretchen, jurors are conditioned from all the legal drama we have on television, Law and Order, CSI, all the other shows that are out there to not only to want, but to expect that type of hard forensic evidence. And then when they don't get it, and you have a good defense attorney who knows how to exploit that, it's a major weakness in the prosecution's
Brian,
case.
I asked you right when we were in the break if you knew what the makeup of the jury was. You think it's more men than women. And the reason I ask that is because I'm wondering if women would be more peed off, quite frankly, that he was carrying on like this, and look at that differently than men on the jury would.
It's great you mentioned that. I absolutely agree with that. When Gypsy Willis testified in this case, she was the mistress of Dr. McNeil, I had heard that the male jurors were like this. They were leaning forward. They were on every word. They were checking her out. She was mesmerizing them. The women were sitting back like this, and I agree with you. I think that the juror makeup here is going to favor, though, the defense. I think we needed more women on this jury.
There's only so much mileage the prosecution can get out of that. Again, the jury's being instructed from the very beginning of voir dire that the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's the highest burden the law recognizes. The fact that male jurors or female jurors might find the defendant unsavory, and by the way, I think the defense attorney did a wonderful job of dealing with this in his summation, saying, look, you may not like my client. I've said that about my clients. I've said that in openings. Say, look, I don't like my client personally. It's not a reason to convict him for murder.
Right. Casey Anthony is proof of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your legal insights today.
Thank you, Gretchen.